So in today's video, I'd like to take a look at yet another example of how to build a minor scale. And really our intents here are just to have a deeper understanding about how to do these and really to come up with like the problems that are probably a little more challenging. So let's start with D flat minor. We remember that to build a minor scale, we start with the major scale. We build that out first, and then we have to flat 3, 6, and 7. All right, so to build my D flat minor scale, I'm going to start with D flat major, and that's going to look like this. Okay, and you can verify the work later on. So D flat minor, to do that I need to now flat 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so there might be a couple of issues here that you sort of noticed. One of the issues is, wait a minute, we've got an F flat. We have a C flat, and then we've got, this would be called a B double flat. And a double flat, the symbol for a double flat, looks like this. And it simply just means to flat a flat. And I know that a function of a flat brings a note down a half step, so this is going to bring a note down. It's going to go down by a whole step. It's going to go down by a whole step. Okay. But when I look at this scale, though, this looks really tricky, right? Like in terms of understanding it, if I said, oh, it's got the notes F flat and B double flat and C flat, you'd really have to stop and take a minute and sort of convert those notes to normal note. It's almost like maybe converting to kilometers and miles, except for, you know, they're both considered normal units, but, you know, if you're in America, you might think of kilometers as maybe being not so normal, and if you're everywhere else, you think of miles as being not so normal, although they technically are both normal. And this is sort of that kind of example. There's like a little bit of a conversion time that takes place, and we really want to get rid of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the N-harmonic equivalent here. So we're going to turn D flat into C sharp, and that means that E flat is going to be its N-harmonic, which is D sharp. And F flat, well, I know what F is, and I know that flatting takes it down a half step, so F flat is the same thing as E. G flat is going to be the same thing as F sharp. A flat is the same thing as G sharp. B double flat, well, I know that B flat is the same thing as A sharp, so then B double flat must be the same thing as A. C flat is a B, and D flat would be C sharp again. And hopefully you recognize that this version that we just wrote out, the version that's written out in sharps, is much cleaner to look at. It makes so much more sense visually. And so what we have up here, this area, we would call this section that I'm bracketing off a hypothetical key. This is hypothetically something that's written in the key of D flat minor. Why do we call it a hypothetical key? Because yes, it exists, and yes, it is a pain in the butt. So we don't want to use it. We want to use it anytime you kind of encounter that sort of a situation. You want to flip it to its N-harmonic equivalent. So let's go ahead and do the same thing here with E flat minor and see what happens there. So E flat, and let's just go ahead and write these out very quickly. I know that the notes here are going to be something like this for E flat major. That's the E flat major scale, by the way, so that's not E flat minor. So then we have to go ahead and flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7. Okay, and so now I recognize that I've got maybe this guy right here, this C flat, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the scale. Let's see if that makes it any better. Okay. And let's see, so let's write this out. So its N-harmonic equivalent for E flat would be a D sharp. What would be the N-harmonic equivalent for F? And if that stumps you, you might want to stop and think about it for a little bit, but it turns out it would be E sharp. For G flat would just be F sharp. A flat would be G sharp. B flat would be A sharp. C flat would be, well, it's flatting a C, right? Lowering a C, it's going to be a B. D flat would be C sharp, and finally E flat again would give us D sharp. Okay, now in this instance I should notice here that I've got an E sharp. So this didn't really help us out. So notice in this particular instance I have I've got a C flat up here, and down here I've got an E sharp. Now there's a perfectly good reason for this. I don't want to discuss it today. We will get into it later on. But this one, notice that flipping didn't help us. How would I know that it didn't help us? Well, I had one sort of awkward note, and here I've got one sort of awkward note. Notice in the previous example, we had three awkward notes. And when I flipped it, we had absolutely 0 awkward notes. And so that was a success, right? Everything worked out. Here we had 1 awkward note. We flipped it. We got 1 awkward note. Didn't really help us. Let's do one more example. This will be our final example here. What about A flat minor? What would that look like? So we want to go ahead and start off by writing out the A flat major scale. And I know that that's going to look something like this. D flat, E flat, F, G, and A flat. And maybe just verify this really quick. We've got whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That all looks good. Then we want to go ahead and flat 3, 6, and 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, now this is where, once again, I start to recognize I've got a C flat, I've got an F flat. Those are sort of my awkward notes. Could I flip this and get something that's not so awkward? Let's find out. So A flat's equivalent would be G sharp. B flat's equivalent would be A sharp. C flat's equivalent would be B. D flat's equivalent would be enharmonic. I should say enharmonic. D flat's enharmonic would be C sharp. E flat's enharmonic would be D sharp. The enharmonic for F flat would be E. The enharmonic for G flat would be F sharp, and the enharmonic for A flat again would be G sharp. And in this instance, you'll notice that we had two awkward notes, an awkward note here and an awkward note here, and then as we flipped it to the enharmonics, we have no awkward notes. And so this is sort of the procedure that you should follow if you end up with a minor scale that doesn't seem to build properly.